Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you Wednesday. We are halfway through the week. We are edging closer towards Arsenal returning to action away at Leicester City on Saturday. A 3 PM Saturday kickoff, as rare as a Tottenham trophy. Those things. Few things to talk about today. I wanted to start with Kieran Tierney. There's lots to talk about Kieran Tierney possibly going to Newcastle. I mean, this is a rumour and speculation that's been going on for a long time. Now it's been sort of stirred up again in the last couple of days. So I wanted to just give my thoughts on that and look at Tierney and his situation and what the best thing potentially to do with Tierney will be for Arsenal in the summer. A couple other things, a bit about Balogun. Jorginho's been speaking as well, so just want to cover a few things like that. Fantastic, first of all, fantastic game at Anfield last night. What a performance that was from Madrid. Clinical to the extreme. Comical defending from Liverpool. I hope they defend like that in April when Arsenal head up to Anfield, put it that way. But wow, Madrid so clinical when they needed to be, and yeah, can't see Liverpool coming back from that. But fantastic night of Champions League football, and hopefully, fingers crossed, next season those are the sort of experiences, the sort of nights that we're going to see at the Emirates. Hopefully not with a 5-2 defeat though at the end of them. Okay, yeah, Kieran Tierney. This is an interesting one, Kieran Tierney. I was sitting in the press room at Villa Park on Saturday before the game at Aston Villa, and we were all talking about that. A few of me and a few other of the Arsenal sort of correspondents and reporters who follow the club closely, and we were chatting about Kieran Tierney. It's a really interesting conversation, I think, what's going to happen with Tierney in the summer. It does feel like an exit is inevitable, really, just purely because Kieran Tierney is not going to want to spend another season doing what he's done this season, which is basically sitting on the bench for the vast majority of the games. But you kind of look at it and think, is it really as simple as that for Arsenal to let a player like Kieran Tierney go when potentially, hopefully, probably you're going to be having Champions League football to contend with next season, when you're going to need a really strong squad? So do you want to be losing a player of Kieran Tierney's stature and quality and experience? You would say no, but then obviously the player has to come into it, and the player, if he's not playing, if he's got good offers from elsewhere, then it's very difficult to keep him at the club, you would think. And I think also with Arsenal, and I've talked about this on previous videos, the need for Arsenal to sell, and to sell well this summer, is absolutely key, because they've been so bad at it for so long. They've brought in no money for so long, basically no money for so long, that Arsenal have had to spend so much in the transfer market without recouping any. You can't continue to do that. You have to start selling, and selling well. And I think that's probably going to come into it as well when Kieran Tierney comes to mind, especially if Newcastle do follow up the interest they have. Now, it makes a lot of sense, Newcastle and Kieran Tierney, for a lot of reasons. A, they need a left-back. I talked about it in a recent video. I think Dan Burns has been playing there. Been playing there well, but he's not a left-back, is he? So they need a left-back. Eddie Howe's a big fan of Kieran Tierney. He wanted to sign him when he was at Bournemouth before Arsenal signed him. And so he's a manager who very much likes Kieran Tierney. It keeps Kieran Tierney in the Premier League. It moves him closer to Scotland, which for Kieran Tierney would be a big thing, because he's, you know, very much a Glasgow lad. And it just makes sense on an awful lot of levels, except for that one key level on it's going to weaken Arsenal, and you don't really want to weaken Arsenal if you can. But I just feel in this case it makes sense. Too much sense, I think, for it not to happen, just because Kieran, I mean, he's still pretty young, Kieran, and he doesn't want another season playing on the bench. It comes with the difficulties of improving your squad, because when you bring in a player like Zinchenko, you're going to suddenly annoy another player, or not annoy, that's probably the wrong word, but it's going to result in another player of Tierney's quality not playing, and that becomes a very difficult thing to manage. You can manage it for a season, which is what Arteta has done this season. You know, Tierney's here, he's playing when he can. And you can kind of have that for one season, but I think when it starts to drag on potentially for 2 seasons or for 3 seasons, that's when it makes it very difficult to sell players, to sort of keep players happy, who aren't playing, and that's when a decision needs to be made. And I think this summer is going to be when a decision needs to be made when it comes to Kieran Tierney. Let me know what you guys think, though. You know, what would you do with Kieran Tierney in the summer? Are you in the sort of camp of, no, we've just got to keep him and keep our squad as strong as possible, or do you think, you know what, it's probably better to sell, get some money in, you can reinvest that elsewhere in the squad, and sort of move on and let Kieran Tierney continue his career and play regularly in the Premier League? I think a lot of factors come into it. Obviously, you've got Nuno Tavares as well, who I spoke about in a recent video. Again, I think this is the time to sell Nuno Tavares. And a lot of people will look at that and think, what, you're going to sell your two backup left-backs? That seems pretty mad in the same summer. But you're kind of looking at the money you could potentially get for those two, and it is good money, and that can sort of balance the books, which do need to be balanced. There's no doubt about that, because of the huge transfer outlays that Arsenal have had in the last couple of years. You'd have to sign a new left back, of course. I mean, we know Arsenal like Ivan Frisnada at Real Sociedad. That kind of nearly happened in January, but he decided he was going to stay. Sociedad decided he was going to stay until the end of the season. I do expect him to probably go in the summer, and Arsenal, I imagine, will continue. You know, the interest is there. They've tracked him. I can't imagine that interest is going to disappear, so I would not be at all surprised if they go back in for him in the summer. There will be other clubs interested in him. Whether they can convince him to come and sign, and whether they do sign him and stick him around for a season at his young age and not going to play, maybe that might not be the case. So there's lots of things to consider when it comes to that. But yeah, I do feel when it comes to Tierney and Tavares, it just feels like this is the summer to sell, because Tierney, the longer you keep him when he's not really playing, the longer you're into his contract, his value's going to go down. He's going to get more and more unhappy. It's very difficult to keep unhappy players in the squad, and that not to have an impact on the team as a whole. We've seen that before at Arsenal when you've had unhappy players. And I'm not saying he's unhappy now, but the longer this goes on, it's just human nature, it's sportsman's nature, elite level sportsman's nature. They don't want to sit on the bench for too long. So there's going to be a difficult decision to make when it comes to Kieran Tierney. And you think if Newcastle, of all clubs, do come in for him, you're going to get a good price, or you should be able to get a good price out of Newcastle for Kieran Tierney. So yeah, big decision to make when it comes to him, but I do feel like this could well be the summer that Arsenal need to probably look at it and think, you know what, we're going to have to make a decision. Now, Arsenal do have Tomiyasu in the squad, of course, don't forget, who can play left-back and can play left-back very, very well. And we've even seen him preferred to Tierney this season by Mikel Arteta, which I think says a lot about Tierney's long-term prospects at the club. But again, let me know what you guys think about that and what you think Arsenal should do with him. Hugely popular player, of course, at Kieran Tierney at Arsenal. Not so long ago that he was probably he was favourite to get the captain's job, and that shows how quickly things can change in football. But it has changed. It's clearly changed. Mikel Arteta prefers Alexander Zinchenko at left back. He prefers to play that inverted left back type player who can come in and fill in midfield. It's just not Kieran Tierney's game. It's not his fault by any means, and he's not a bad player because of it. It's just not. It doesn't really fit Mikel Arteta's tactics and how Arteta sees this team developing at Arsenal. And I think that's obviously worked against Kieran Tierney when it comes to playing time and minutes. But he's still going to have a big part to play between now and the end of the season, no doubt about that, especially once Europa League kicks off again. Following Balogun, some interesting comments here from the Reims president, Jean-Pierre Callier. He's been talking about Balogun and the prospect of Reims signing him in the summer, which clearly he does not think the prospects are very good. He says, I think signing him is impossible. These are boys who, when they join us, they know they're here to showcase themselves, and this is a stage for them. So even if I don't decide his future with him, Following will return to his club, Arsenal, or have his chance, or he'll be loaned out again, or even transferred to a very high-level club. He is a player who must go even higher. Obviously, we'll ask the question to his club about another loan. We know he feels good here, but today I think he will make a step up. We are already working on the next Balogun for the day he leaves the club. I mean, again, when I'm talking about selling players, Balogun's going to come into that category in the summer. What do you do with him after this fantastic loan spell? Do you bring him back to the club? Do you really have him competing for a starting spot at Arsenal next season? Or is he going to be happy to sit on the bench after playing so regularly and scoring all those goals? What's it going to do to his value if you let him just sit on the bench and not play much football next season? Do you cash in now when his value is going to be incredibly high? These are all really big decisions that Arsenal are going to have to make in the summer. It's going to be tough for Balogun because he's a homegrown lad. You think, stick around, you want him, you don't really want to lose the homegrown lads, but then you think in the balance sheets again, and I know you don't really want to think about balance sheets when it comes to football clubs, but that's just pure profit. If Arsenal sell Balogun for big money in the summer, if someone at a Premier League club comes in for him and offers big money for him, that is pure profit that goes on the balance sheet, and it does need to be balanced. So it's a big decision again for Arsenal to make when it comes to Balogun. Mikel Arteta spoke about him recently and how happy he is with that loan spell, and he must be, because it's brilliant. I think it's 15 goals in 23 appearances he scored this season, 11 with Mbappe at the top of the scoring charts in France. Missed a penalty at the weekend, actually. Balogun would have gone back ahead of Mbappe had he scored that, but that's one of the few sort of negatives he's had in the season as a whole, because he's been absolutely incredible over there. And I think, I mean, look, he's not going to go to Reims next season. We know that. If he does come back to Arsenal and get his chance, then that would be great. If he doesn't, you think maybe a loan spell to a higher level club than Reims, probably another Premier League club, see how he cuts it there, maybe try and get him to sign a new contract before doing that. These are all big decisions that are going to be made in the summer when it comes to reshaping the squad, because there's still plenty of work to do at Arsenal when it comes to reshaping that squad. They're going to be busy in the transfer market again, that's for sure. They're going to try and make some big signings in the summer, that's for sure. To do that, they can't just rely on money being found by the owners. They need to start selling players, and selling players well, to add to that transfer kitty that they have. And these are some of the players who are going to be involved in those decisions. Okay, some interesting comments here from Jorginho. He's been talking about Granit Xhaka, which I thought was really good. If you haven't seen them, I wanted to read them to you because I just thought they were really good. Obviously, they've been up against each other an awful lot during the time in the Premier League, with Jorginho at Chelsea and Xhaka at Arsenal, and haven't always got on eye to eye. And he was asked about that in a recent interview with beIN Sports, and he said, yes, I'm happy. We've had a few fights on the pitch before, but outside of the pitch, he's a really nice guy, and we have some good laughs now. I asked him the other day where I could go for dinner around here, and he booked a table for me, and he didn't let me pay either. I was like, oh, thank you very much. So he's a really nice guy, and I'm glad I can see the other part of him. It's interesting, isn't it, when you've got two players who have been so, been against each other for so long at the top level, and you have that sort of competitive nature, but then suddenly they arrive at the same club together, and it's like, well, we've got to put that competitive nature to one side and become teammates here and become friends. And Xhaka, the way he's done that with Jorginho, taking him out to dinner, paying for it all, making him feel welcome, that's such a key thing for Xhaka. It's why he's so popular at Arsenal. It's why Mikel Arteta trusts him so much and sees him as such a leader in this squad. It's for things like that, it's for acts like that, and he's done that since he's been at Arsenal, and I think that's why he's always been popular and always been liked, and managers have always backed him, even when the fans have been against him, even when his performances haven't been great. He's always had the backing of his teammates and his managers, and it's because of the way he acts off the pitch and how important he is to the sort of dressing room unity. And he talks as well, Jorginho, about why he signed for Arsenal and whether Arteta was the key thing. He said it's one of the reasons. Yes, he called me in, it was all very quick after that. We made the deal in less than 24 hours. I'd spoken to Chelsea, I knew I was no longer in their plans. I wanted to progress in my career, and the Arsenal project suits me. It's a young team that plays good football, it fits my characteristics. I considered every scenario and made this decision. Sometimes you must accept when you are out of a project and things come to an end. It's going to be really intriguing to see how this all plays out between now and the end of the season in terms of Jorginho's transfer. You saw the initial reaction. It wasn't great. At the moment, everyone's pretty happy. He had a good performances the last couple of games. Had that key moment against Aston Villa. Probably going to start this weekend, I imagine, against Leicester, because I can't imagine Thomas Partey is going to be available. And even if he is, Arsenal are going to tread carefully with Thomas Partey. And Jorginho's already showing he's a really influential player. He's been really popular behind the scenes, and he's making an impact on the pitch. And I think not everyone's, but I think a lot of people's views on that transfer are already beginning to change. And if Arsenal go on and achieve what hopefully we all hope they can achieve, then that transfer is going to be viewed very, very differently to what it initially was when he first arrived at the club. And he just needs to keep performing the way he did at Villa Park. And like I said, I imagine he will be in the heart of midfield against Leicester. We'll find out a little bit more about that as the week progresses. Mikel Arteta's press conference is on Friday morning at London Colney. We'll see if Thomas Partey is back and available as we sort of build up to that and to Saturday's game. But I just feel the way Jorginho's playing, the form that he's in, the fact that Thomas has got this injury, even if he does come back and he is deemed available, I just wonder if Arsenal might well err on the side of caution with that one, and sort of give him a little bit of extra time rest and just continue to go with Jorginho in the middle of the park against that Leicester team at the weekend. Alright, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. Bit of a sort of opinion video today rather than anything else. But anything I've said, if you agree with, disagree with, let me know. Join in the debate, as always, in the comments below. There's always lots of lively debate in those comments, which is good to see. Have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon.